What an historic event we had this weekend in the ZrT Trackmania Cup 2020. Records was broken, a new king of Trackmania was maybe crowned, and it's safe to say that the first major event in the new Trackmania was a success. My name is Eirik Holdal. I will try to recap this ZrT Trackmania Cup 2020. If you don't want to be spoiled, why are you here? I will recap the results, what I think about the players, what I think about the event overall, and then maybe preview a little bit about the next year's edition that is going to take place in Accor Hotel's arena in May next year. First things first, Gwen is the new champion of the ZrT Trackmania Cup. He's the youngest winner of the cup ever. Gwen is still 15 years old. He's soon turning 16. But the previous youngest players were Koons, who was 17 years old, and Javi Flyer, who's also 17. So already a record breaking there by simply Gwen being so young and still winning a major title at Trackmania. I think we have to go back to 2013 with Carl Jr. winning ESWC when he was 16 to have some sort of comparison to this win. And was the win deserved? Was it expected? Yes and yes. This win was by far deserved. It's not like you have a feeling about Gwen luckily won it or he undeservedly won it. Gwen was the best player at this cup. He was the best player in the qualification. He beat Carl Jr. in the semi-final, and then in the final he also beat all of them. So deserved win for Gwen there. And also, if you quickly go through the sort of semi-finals, first semi-final, like expected, pretty close between the players. It was the most exciting out of the semi-finals. In the end, Bren took it in front of Orwell that qualified, and then for the first time now since 2017, I believe, Papud is not in a grand final. So of course he's probably disappointed with his performance, or at least with the result he achieved, but this is ZrT. Sometimes you are not gonna be on your best level once it's needed. That's the name of the game. The other semi-final, like I predicted in the previous show with Turbo on Sunday, I said that I don't necessarily think this semi-final is gonna be as exciting as people maybe expect it to be, simply because Carl Jr. and Gwen have a higher level than Bad Lulu and Yannick's. And this was the case on this Sunday as well. From the start to the finish, basically Carl Jr. and Gwen had full control at taking the two advancing spots. Gwen won it in front of Carl Jr. So the final then was Bren, Orwell, Gwen and Carl Jr. Going into that final, I still had Carl Jr. as my biggest favorite. I had him as the biggest favorite before the tournament started, also after the qualifications. And I didn't change my mind before the grand final, but still it wasn't like I had him as a strong favorite. I knew that this might just be a 50-50 between him and Gwen, or it might maybe even like I don't know, 33-33 between Bren as well. But the final actually ended up being closer than I expected. I know that Bren and Orwell is insanely good players, but I just had a feeling about this year's edition being between Carl Jr. and Gwen, and maybe somewhat forgot about the other players, but they both proved me wrong. They both showed that they could have won it if there was some sort of different, I don't know, maybe a different map pack, maybe just a little bit different feeling, different momentum. So the final itself was good, maybe 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10. It was not as good as the ZrT Trackmania Cup number 4, that I still believe is, I will say, top 3 of my all-time favorite matches. This is up there, but it's not like the best of all time that we have seen at the ZeratoR Cup. But if we quickly talk about the final, again, close. It changed a lot about who was in the lead. I think my favorite moment from that final is actually Orwell, once he showed a new strat on, I don't know the map names, but it's essentially he took the first ring checkpoint last. So the players thought it was a CP bug, and ZratoR thought it was a CP bug, while Orwell was like, hey, it's not, I'm just finding a new strat that is better. So that map actually allowed him to catch up, and suddenly he was also in the picture of, hey, can he win it again? But sadly for him, it was Gwen who proved to be the strongest at the end. If you talk about what these wins mean for Gwen, of course now he's getting more exposures. He has won the biggest tournament in Trackmania in terms of exposure. He's French, he's young, he's an up and coming player, so people are now going to follow him. People are now going to see him as the strongest contender for Carl Jr. in upcoming events. So this win is solidifying Gwen as a top player in the scene. Now he's not longer an up and coming player, now he's a top player. And that is already insane once you're still not turned 16, so I like it. I like new players coming up, and it's fine, or it's fun to see Gwen actually reaching the level of success he has already done and already won a major event in the game. Carl Jr. once again at the podium. He won it 5 out of 7 times before, and now it's the 7th time out of 8 on the podium. Only one time, the first time, or the first ZrT Cup was the only time he hasn't been on the podium. Then he was knocked out in the semi-final by Sander. Bren, sorry. Bren placing for a 6th time on the podium, so once again a strong performance by him. But I don't think, in a weird way, I think Carl Jr. is more happy about the results in the end than, let's say, Bren, because Carl Jr. has won it so many times before that I don't think he necessarily feels that he needs a win, while maybe Bren, who of course won it last year, but that was in duo edition, maybe he wants this solo win more than Carl Jr. wants this solo win at this particular cup. So I guess Gwen and Bren is too much similar names, so I'm gonna mess that up a lot in the future. But I don't think Bren is 100% pleased with his performance, but I think he's also happy that he placed on the podium, placed in the grand final, and it was actually close, so it's not like he was destroyed by Gwen and Carl Jr. So he could have won it if some rounds went his way instead of Gwen's way, or you know what I mean. Or well, the same case I guess as Bren. He's happy probably that being in the grand final, being in a close match for the title, but he still wants this win, and he didn't get it this year, so just another year that he maybe has to wait until he finally gets it. So, is Gwen the new king of Trackmania? Is he already better than Carl Jr.? I mean, he beat Carl Jr., and he didn't only beat Carl Jr., he beat Carl Jr. at Carl Jr.'s best event. Of course, Carl Jr. is the 3-time world champion. Of course, he's the latest winner of Trackmania Grand League. But Carl Jr.'s history at the ZrT Trackmania Cup is the best I think almost any player has at a singular tournament in Trackmania. Before this, he had won it 5 out of 7 times. That is mental. So if you beat Carl Jr. at the ZrT Trackmania Cup, I don't see it as unlikely that you can beat him at other cups. Gwen has already beaten Carl Jr. now at ZrT Trackmania Cup, so I guess he has a chance at beating him at Trackmania Grand League as well. But that is left to see. Then you also have to take into perspective how good is Gwen at these type of maps. We still don't really know that. Of course, strong performance in Open Grand League and combined. But if you're gonna beat Carl Jr. at Trackmania Grand League and what he did in Lyon, well, I just want to say good luck, because that is not gonna be easy. So I think the history, if you go back to this particular event in 3 years, I think the history book can see this as a changing point about who is the best player in Trackmania. I don't necessarily think that it's gonna be like a black and white switch that all events from now on is gonna be won by Gwen. I still believe Carl Jr. is the best player. I still believe him as the biggest favorite for Trackmania Grand League. But maybe it's not as clear anymore about who is the best player in Trackmania, and now he has a really strong contender that is probably just going to be better and better for the future. He is younger than Carl Jr., so he probably will have more time to train, he probably have more motivation to train, and eventually then you're going to take more and more over. So maybe it's a little bit too early to call him the new king of Trackmania, but I mean, if you want to call him that, I'm fine with that. I'm not going to meme about it, but really impressive performance by Gwen, and so far he is the future of this game, and it's about time that we maybe get some some new contender up there. He was also this was his first grand final at the ZrT Cup. Carl Jr. was his number 7, Brent's number 6, and Aurel number 4. So he played against faces that we are used to seeing, and I think this game needs new faces. So I'm happy about Gwen, and I'm curious to see how he's gonna deal with the sort of pressure that he has now heading into Trackmania Grand League. Now he's not an up-and-coming player, like I said. Now he's heading into that tournament as one of the favorites. So 10 minutes roughly talking about just a recap, and I have not mentioned ZratoR, the guy who actually hosts this event, the guy who is essentially, like I mentioned in my video, that he has changed Trackmania, and he's continuing doing that even in the new game. He has said in my interview that he wants to, every edition he wants to take a step up. I don't necessarily think that he viewed this tournament as a step up simply because now you didn't have a Hotels Arena, but this tournament was a step up from last year. Not necessarily in terms of how, like the venue itself, it was 0 spectators because you could not be in an arena simply because of COVID-19, but this event peaked at 140,000 viewers on Twitch. Those numbers are unheard of. That is the biggest peak any streamer has had in this game, and by far. I think the highest peak was 96,000 viewers by ZeratoR as well. Just to put these numbers into perspective, we were all hyped when we saw XQC, Lyric and ZeratoR streaming this new game the first week of release. If you add the highest peak from XQC, if you add the highest peak of Lyric, if you add the highest peak of ZeratoR, those are still not 140,000 viewers. So ZeratoR beat all of them combined. So insane numbers from ZeratoR. Really happy to see that. So I'm already just curious about how big can the next year's edition be. ZeratoR joked about filling up a football stadium in the future. I'm not gonna see that as a joke anymore. I think if he goes for it, he's gonna do it. So it's unheard of what ZeratoR is doing, and I'm really happy to see that his cup got a lot of views this year, even though it was no offline phase and sort of the natural talking point and sort of natural hype was not there, but still numbers that, yeah, historic numbers that I hope he's gonna break it, but I mean, if he's gonna break it again, then I don't know, then this guy. But I also want to address a little thing that a lot of international people are, I don't know what mad, I don't think mad is the correct word, but you get what I mean, that a lot of people are mentioning that why no English cast? If there was English caster for this event, then it would have a lot of more viewers. Imagine if it was outside of France as well, then maybe it would have double the numbers. I think you fail to understand why this event then has so many viewers. The people that tune into this event, those are fans of ZeratoR tuning into Trackmania, not Trackmania fans tuning into ZeratoR. Trackmania fans in particular is maybe, let's say if you are 2%, I think that's a fair number, maybe 5%. But the rest are fans that just enjoy the show by ZeratoR. If you give this to an English caster and think that now it's gonna be 250,000 viewers, then you're out of your mind, because I don't think that will happen. I think let's say if there was an English stream, I think we should be happy if it reached 10,000 viewers. And to be honest, I understand ZeratoR. I understand that he doesn't want to give his product that he has built up over 7 years to just anybody and everyone. ZeratoR has always put show before esport, and if you give this, let's say if you give this opportunity to Riolo, to Spam or Virtual, or even myself or G-Geek, I think we would more put it esport first and then show. And then you're sort of missing the whole essence of this cup. This cup is made for fans, this is not necessarily made for the players. I talked with ZeratoR about this himself. I will ask him once on Wednesday when I do an interview with him about it. But I think it's more comes down to how this product is presented to the people, how he wanted to be presented to the people, and if that means that he has full control and it's only French, then maybe that's better for him than just allowing someone else to stream it in English, and then maybe they don't represent it in a way that he wanted to be represented. But I can understand fans not watching this simply because they don't understand the language. That's fine, but in the end, this is not an official tournament hosted by Ubisoft Mondeo. This is a tournament hosted by one streamer from France. So yeah, don't expect. It's not like he is obligated to do it, but I guess the international community is at this point expecting everything in Trackmania to be both English and French. But at this point, I think the international community is actually in the sort of wrong, if you want to say it like that. It will be nice, but it's not something we could or can expect. So, already talked longer than I expected. Quickly want to say that tomorrow I'm gonna do a Trackmania live with the players. I already booked ZratoR for that, and hopefully I will try to get as many players as possible. So stay tuned on this channel if you want more content. I'll also do a particular video where I recap Gwen's win to this historic event, and yeah. How hyped are you for next year? I'm already counting down days until May 29th in Accor Hotel's arena. I need to do an own video about that, but that's it for now. Before we go, please press that subscribe button. We reach 2,000 subscribers soon, so I guess it's good to mention that you should subscribe and like the video. So continue doing that, and maybe soon we are gonna end up with just 80% of the viewers being non-subs. But thanks for all the support this weekend, and if you're fans of ZeratoR and only watch Trackmania once ZeratoR is hosting something, considering checking out this channel the rest of the year as well. I'm uploading Trackmania content almost daily, if not weekly. I cover everything that is happening in the esports scene of this game, so feel free to stick around even though the ZrT Trackmania Cup is over for this time. Bye bye.